The African continent, despite its rich cultural diversity and abundant natural resources, has long grappled with militancy and civil wars that have inflicted immense human suffering, displaced millions, and hindered development. These conflicts are driven by a complex interplay of historical, political, economic, and social factors. By examining cases like the ongoing Sudan civil war, Al-Shabaab's insurgency in Somalia, and ethnic-based conflicts in Ethiopia's Amhara and Oromia regions, alongside earlier examples such as Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, we can identify root causes. Drawing lessons from Southeast Asia, a region that transitioned from widespread militancy to relative peace, offers insights into potential solutions for Africa's challenges. Colonialism left African nations with arbitrary borders that often ignored ethnic and cultural realities, fostering division and resentment. Many modern conflicts trace their roots to these imposed boundaries and the favoritism shown by colonial powers to certain groups. Belgian colonial policies deepened the divide between the Hutu and Tutsi ethnic groups, favoring the Tutsi minority. This entrenched resentment culminated in the 1994 genocide, where Hutu militias killed around 800,000 people, mostly Tutsis, in a brutal 100-day period. Ethiopia, though not colonized in the classical sense, adopted a centralized imperial system that marginalized ethnic groups like the Oromo and others. Post-1991, the country's ethnic federalism system aimed to address these grievances, but instead fueled competition among groups. The Amhara and Oromia regions have seen ongoing clashes since 2018, driven by disputes over land, power, and historical grievances, with groups like the Oromo Liberation Army and Amhara militias engaging in violence that has killed hundreds and displaced tens of thousands. Africa's vast natural resources, diamonds, oil, minerals, often fuel conflict rather than prosperity, as groups vie for control, and corruption exacerbates inequality. Economic deprivation provides fertile ground for militancy, as disenfranchised populations turn to armed groups promising change or protection. The Democratic Republic of Congo's mineral wealth, including coltan and gold, has attracted militias and foreign-backed groups, fueling violence since the late 1990s. The Second Congo War killed millions, and displaced countless others, with ongoing conflict by groups like M23 in the east perpetuating instability. The ongoing civil war in Sudan, which intensified in April 2023, partly stems from competition over resources like gold and oil in regions such as Darfur and South Kordofan. The conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces has devastated the country, killing tens of thousands and displacing over 6 million people internally and externally as of early 2025. Economic grievances, including unequal wealth distribution, have exacerbated the power struggle, drawing in militias and foreign actors seeking to exploit Sudan's resources. Weak institutions and pervasive corruption undermine trust in African governments, leaving citizens vulnerable to exploitation by militias and rebel groups. When states fail to deliver justice or services, alternative power structures emerge to fill the void. After independence in 2011, South Sudan's civil war erupted in 2013 due to a power struggle between President Salva Kiir and his former deputy, Riek Machar, fueled by corruption and ethnic favoritism. The conflict has killed over 400,000 and displaced millions, with weak governance preventing effective resolution. Somalia's central government has struggled to assert control since the collapse of Siad Barre's regime in 1991, creating a power vacuum exploited by Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda-affiliated militant group. Al-Shabaab has capitalized on distrust in the government, offering governance in areas it controls, while waging a brutal insurgency that has killed thousands and disrupted humanitarian efforts. The group's attacks, including bombings in Mogadishu, continue to destabilize the country, with corruption hampering the government's ability to counter them effectively. Ethnic and religious diversity, while a strength, can be manipulated by leaders to consolidate power, leading to sectarian violence. Militant groups exploit these divisions to recruit fighters and justify their actions, deepening societal fractures. Nigeria's Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast exploits religious and economic grievances, pitting the predominantly Muslim north against the Christian-dominated south. its campaign has killed tens of thousands and displaced over 2 million, fueled by poverty and government failures. Ethiopia's ethnic-based federal system has heightened tensions between groups like the Amhara and Oromo, the country's two largest ethnic communities. Since 2018, clashes between Amhara militias and Oromo groups, including the OLA, have escalated, driven by disputes over territory and political representation. In Amhara, the Fano militia has clashed with federal forces, while in Oromia, the OLA's insurgency has led to mass displacements and civilian deaths, with ethnic killings reported on both sides. External actors often prolong African conflicts by supplying arms, funding factions, or pursuing geopolitical interests. The Cold War saw superpowers back rival groups, and today, regional powers and private mercenaries continue this trend, flooding the continent with weapons. The Darfur conflict, starting in 2003, was worsened by foreign arms supplies and regional rivalries, with Chad and Libya involved. The current civil war sees similar dynamics, with reports indicating that the UAE and Russia have supplied weapons to the RSF, while the SAF receives support from Egypt and others. This foreign involvement has prolonged the conflict, contributing to over 61,000 deaths in Khartoum alone by late 2024. Somalia, dealing with the Al-Shabaab insurgency, has seen this conflict fueled by arms flowing from Yemen and illicit markets, with foreign fighters joining its ranks. External interventions such as Ethiopian and Kenyan military operations against Al-Shabaab have had mixed results. Sometimes these efforts weaken the group, but they also inflame local grievances that aid its recruitment. Lessons from Southeast Asia show a transition from militancy to relative peace. Southeast Asia, once rife with militancy and civil wars during the Cold War era, has largely transitioned to stability and economic growth. Nations like Vietnam, Cambodia, and Indonesia faced insurgencies but achieved relative peace through deliberate strategies that Africa can emulate. Regional cooperation and diplomacy have played a crucial role in Southeast Asia. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, founded in 1967, fostered dialogue and economic integration. This reduced interstate tensions and provided a platform for conflict resolution. After Vietnam's invasion of Cambodia in 1978 to oust the Khmer Rouge, ASEAN-led diplomacy and the 1991 Paris peace agreements ended the conflict, paving the way for reconciliation. The African Union could enhance its mediation role by learning from ASEAN's collaborative approach. In Sudan, the AU has attempted to mediate between the SAF and RSF but lacks the enforcement power and resources to broker a lasting ceasefire. Greater investment in its Peace and Security Council could help. Southeast Asian countries prioritized economic growth, reducing poverty and grievances that fuel militancy. Investments in education, infrastructure, and trade created opportunities, deterring youth from joining rebel groups. Indonesia addressed separatism in Aceh through economic decentralization and development, culminating in the 2005 Helsinki Agreement, which granted autonomy and economic benefits, securing lasting peace. Inclusive economic growth is critical. In Somalia, where youth unemployment drives Al-Shabaab recruitment, vocational training and infrastructure projects could offer alternatives, much like Indonesia's approach in Aceh. Southeast Asia implemented truth and reconciliation processes to address grievances and prevent further violence, promoting healing over retribution. East Timor, after its violent separation from Indonesia in 1999, the Commission for Reception, Truth and Reconciliation documented abuses and facilitated community healing, helping prevent revenge cycles. Ethiopia could adopt similar mechanisms to address ethnic tensions in Amhara and Oromia. Grassroots reconciliation forums involving local leaders could help rebuild trust, as Rwanda did with Gacaca courts post-genocide. Southeast Asian nations implemented disarmament, demobilization and reintegration, or DDR programs to reduce arms proliferation and reintegrate former fighters into society. Post-Khmer Rouge, Cambodia's DDR programs in the 1990s supported by the UN, provided land and jobs to ex-combatants, reducing the risk of renewed conflict. Lesson for Africa. Sudan's civil war requires robust DDR programs to disarm militias like the RSF and reintegrate fighters. Without such efforts, splinter groups could perpetuate violence, as seen in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Addressing militancy and civil war in Africa demands a comprehensive strategy that tackles root causes, strengthens governance, and fosters regional cooperation. Transparent institutions and anti-corruption reforms are essential to rebuild trust. Independent judiciaries, free media, and civil society oversight can hold leaders accountable. Somalia could establish anti-corruption courts with international support, as Kenya has done, to address the graft that weakens its fight against al-Shabaab. Equitable economic growth targeting marginalized regions can reduce grievances. Education, healthcare, and infrastructure projects can provide opportunities and deter militancy. Ethiopia could launch youth employment programs in Amhara and Oromia, modeled after Indonesia's vocational schemes, to counter recruitment by groups like the OLA and Fano. The AU and regional bodies like ECOWAS must bolster conflict resolution capabilities, deploying peacekeepers swiftly and mediating disputes proactively. In Sudan, the AU could increase funding for its peace fund and deploy mediators to facilitate talks between the SAF and RSF, drawing on ASEAN's diplomatic successes. Truth commissions, reparations, and community dialogues can heal divisions and prevent revenge cycles in post-conflict societies. Ethiopia could make effective and inclusive the already established national reconciliation commissions to address ethnic grievances in Amhara and Oromia, ensuring impartiality with international support. International agreements to limit arms flows, paired with sanctions on states fueling conflicts, can reduce violence. In Somalia, enforcing the UN Arms Trade Treaty more rigorously could stem the flow of weapons to al-Shabaab, focusing on suppliers in Yemen and illicit markets. Traditional leaders often hold legitimacy that governments lack. Engaging them in peace talks can bridge divides and ensure grassroots support. In Sudan, involving tribal leaders in Darfur in peace negotiations could help address local grievances exploited by the RSF, as seen in some Somali peace processes. Africa's persistent struggles with militancy and civil war stem from historical grievances, resource conflicts, weak governance, ethnic divisions, and foreign interference, as seen in Sudan's civil war, Somalia's al-Shabaab insurgency, Ethiopia's ethnic conflicts, and other cases like Rwanda and the DRC. Southeast Asia's journey from conflict to peace highlights the value of regional cooperation, economic development, and reconciliation, strategies Africa can adapt. By strengthening institutions, fostering inclusive growth, and prioritizing diplomacy, African nations can move towards stability. The path is fraught, but with collective effort from governments, regional bodies, and the international community, a more peaceful future is attainable.